This is an answer to burnout, and it's probably an answer that you haven't heard before because so many of the answers given don't really get to the core of how to sort the situation out long term. And I want to tell you about three of the main answers that people give for burnout, both explicitly and indirectly, as well as provide you with an alternative that I think is stronger and better and more useful. Now, my name is Joe Yulee. I'm a philosopher. I'm absolutely obsessed with vocations and callings and just helping people to walk their path in the world in a way that works with them, their own naturalness, their own way of being, as opposed to being contorted into some sort of figure that produces and gets ground down and has no vitality for life. Now, I've seen just so many people over the years, and they come to me and they are burnt out, they're worn down, they don't have much life left in them. Alternatively, I also have a lot of people that come to me post burnout. Maybe they've gone on some sort of break for a period of 6 months, a year, and they took that time to simply heal from what had just happened. There are three different answers that people often give for burnout. And I want to go over each of these answers in depth. Now, the very first one is content creation, which seems kind of strange to offer this as an alternative, and yet so many people turn to content creation as a way to get outside or to leave an environment that is causing them burnout. However, what often happens is that people go and they start to create content from a place of trying to leave a 9 to 5 job. They start to create content, and they end up finding themselves again in a place where they have to constantly churn out work repetitively on routine, and that automatically starts to pull them downwards, and they get the same feeling that they had originally. And so although people see content creation in relation to some sort of possible freedom from a place that they no longer wish to be because it's causing them burnout, they go and they move into something without fully understanding the mechanics of it, and then they themselves again put themselves in a situation where they're finding that they're going to start to get burnt out. So that's number one. People will often see content creation as a way to get outside of burnout or to heal burnout or to escape from a current situation that is causing burnout. Now, the second very common thing people do to try to get out of burnout is entrepreneurship. Now, the entrepreneur, if we think of it as a career archetype, and so a career archetype is a core pattern that somebody can embody in order to properly pursue their calling. And the entrepreneur has a focus primarily around freedom and money. We could also say some sort of productivity, but if we're thinking about it in the way that most people view it, freedom and money. And when people that are burnt out see and view someone else that has freedom and the ability to work when they want, they also begin to associate themselves with that type of lifestyle, as well as seeing that they could possibly rest more. And therefore, they say, well, if I had my own business, if I didn't have to work as much, I could rest. If I could rest, I could heal. If I was healed, I wouldn't be burnt out. If I could structure my own days, then I wouldn't have to constantly be pushing myself to the point where I feel broken. But this is also, to go on a slight side track right now. It's also one of the reasons why so many people crave the 4-day work week. And the 4-day work week tells us that most people don't want to work at the job that they're employed at. Most people know that, but it's very, very sad. Most people don't want to work at the job that they're employed at, as well as most people have something else they think could serve their time better. And what's interesting is that when people find their calling, and this is a real perspective shift for so many people when they find out what their calling is. So when people find their calling, they often want to work more, and they often have to be pulled back from working too much because the calling itself gives energy as opposed to takes it away. There's still going to be challenges. There's still going to be the requirement of intensity and energy as well, but the thing that they're pouring energy into gives them energy back. So the relationship between the person and the work is much healthier compared to doing work that you don't want to be doing. There's the real drain on you when that happens. And so entrepreneurship can be this image that is created as ideal, as a way to escape into some sort of free place where you're not having to continue to push yourself to the limits recurringly over time and just burn out. So the nature of entrepreneurship as well can cause incredible amounts of burnout, especially when it's not connected to the calling. Again, it's taking an old way of being in the world and then going and moving into doing work that is equally exhaustive, even if it's exciting to begin with. And you'll see this a lot with people that jump into being an entrepreneur. They're initially excited, they get things going, and they start to move forward, but it's not the thing, it's not the calling. And then it starts to drag, and they haven't structured in a way that allows them to be in connection with their calling in their business, and again, causes burnout in the same way. So it's not the answer. The third one is sometimes quite a surprising one to people when I say that this is not the answer to burnout. And it is taking a sabbatical, which means taking a big, long break for an extended period of time, typically to rest. Now, there's nothing wrong with resting. In fact, people that are burnt out need to rest. But often, this doesn't solve the core problem. And people will take sabbaticals, they'll go and they will rest and they will heal, or they might even take some time to do some education or some work with some other people, really reconnect with who they are. They can feel healthier, they can feel more vibrant, they can start to reorient themselves in their life. However, if they're not properly connected into what their calling is, they end up re-entering work, re-entering paths in a way that is the same as when they left. There might be like a slight variation. Oh, I'm going to work for a company, but the boss isn't an arsehole. Oh, I'm going to go and work in a different industry, but I'm still going to go ahead and do the same role that I've been doing for the past 10 years. And so many of the expectations are the same, many of the standards are the same, many of the ways in which someone is doing work is the same. And that inevitably and eventually leads again to burnout. So it doesn't help. As I'm saying all of this, the interesting thing is that all three of the things that I mentioned can be ways in which someone can do their work so as to not burn out. In fact, it can help to feed what it is that they are trying to do in the world. However, before any of those three things can help, someone has to, the person who's walking the calling, they have to reevaluate their values and connect into those values in such a way where they are unwilling to do work in the world that goes against those values. Meaning that if someone is deeply in integrity with the content they're putting in the world, then what they're putting in the world will feel correct and will feel true, and they won't feel like I've got to do this content again and again. Instead, it's like, oh, I need to, or I must, or I have to, or I feel called to. It's a very different relationship with creating that content. The other example of entrepreneurship, same thing again. If someone starts a business purely because they want money or purely because they want freedom, for some people, I guess that might work. But for anyone that is looking for something deeper to sustain themselves, it's not the business that's the most important thing. It's the why are you even beginning this thing in the first place? Why do people even need this at all? And when someone is deeply connected to that reason, again, they're getting that loop of giving and receiving, and that is correct, rather than just give and give and give and get nothing back in return, or not enough so as to feed the deeper parts of your soul. And the third one as well is the sabbatical. And if someone uses that sabbatical to go ahead and reevaluate their values and properly understand what they think is correct for them and then they re-enter the world and they're not willing to go against those values, then one of those values will likely be connected to how they don't push themselves to the point of the absurd, where they are just pushing and pushing and pushing and giving and giving and giving, whilst not believing in what it is that they're doing. So people that go through this need to connect into, what are my values? Am I embodying those values in the world? And what values was I embodying when I was burning out? So as an example, someone that burns out will often have the value of keeping a boss happy, keeping a team happy, keeping possibly their loved ones happy in such a way where they are excluding themselves from the situation. So reevaluating that value of who should be the happy one when it comes to my work. Should it only be my boss? Or am I a part of this equation? Am I in this? So there is often a requirement for someone to reevaluate their values in such a way whereby they need to be more selfish. They need to be connected to the work that they're doing and not just doing something because someone else has authority or someone else has the ability to make sure they get their paycheck or not. So these questions, whilst they're tricky, and it's one of the reasons people avoid them, when you dive into them and you start to stare at, what are my values? Am I living by my values? What values am I living by when I'm burnt out? It will get you to reorient yourself in the world in such a way where you'll start pursuing work that won't burn you out. So this is the deeper answer to burnout. All these other things, even the 4-day work week, they're very much on the surface. They don't really look at the roots. And if you yourself are someone that has maybe gone through being burnt out, or you're reevaluating your own values, trying to understand what your next step is in your path, then I would encourage you to go ahead and check out our online community. And it's here that I help people to choose the right career path with conviction by unearthing their very own career archetype. And we have an 8-week course that takes you through this process of collecting self-knowledge in such a way that you'll be able to come to a decisive conclusion as to what your path is. And not only that, but also will help you to start to map the path, begin walking the steps in the real world, because it's not simply about knowing what your calling is, but also you have to pay the bills still, you have to earn an income in some way, especially in the 21st century, and you also have to have a lifestyle that works for you. So if you would like to know how we go about helping people to do that, then you can go ahead and check out the link below.